Hello everyone and welcome back. We've covered quite a few things in our basics to configuration video, and today we're going to be taking a look at the basics of switch configuration, right? My name is Kenneth and let's get started. So in switching configuration, basically there are a few things that we should take note of in configuring switches, right? There are quite a few services that switches at layer 2 provide. For the sake of this video, we're going to be taking a look at these four main things: VLAN and VLAN interface management. We're going to be taking a look at spanning tree, and then we're going to be taking a look at port modes, right? So these are not the only configuration you can perform on a switch, right? There are various configurations that you can perform on a switch, right? But it depends on whether the switch is working at layer 2 or layer 3, but we're focusing on layer 2. And also it depends on the vendor of that particular switch, right? Some vendors would permit you to make some configurations, some specific configurations on them, while others would not be able to, you won't be able to perform such configurations on those ones. So for the sake of you understanding this, because it's a basics video, I'm using a switch that has a graphical user interface, and that's my D-Link web smart switch, right? It's an end-of-life device, but for the sake of understanding the concepts of switching, it would help us actually understand what we need to know about configuring switches. So let's get into the web UI and see what we have there. Now if you take a look, you would see that we're inside the UI of the D-Link switch. I've already done the initial login and setting up management IP addresses and all that stuff, right? So we're just going to be looking at what we're going to do today, which is the interface. Let's take a look at the slide one more time. So the first thing we're looking at is VLANs, right? So VLANs help you segment your network into virtual local area networks, right? So that broadcast would be within those VLANs, right? And broadcast will not exit those VLANs. It also helps in security. It helps in segmenting your network according to business unit. For instance, you have HR department, you have sales, you have customer support, you have a guest network. You can separate them into VLANs just to ensure that their data stays within the respective VLAN, right? So to perform VLAN configuration on switches, you first create a VLAN and then you assign specific interfaces to those VLANs, right? So this switch is a 24 port switch, and we will see how we can set up VLANs. Now, if we take a look at the menu on the left side, we'll see that we have, let me zoom in a little bit. Now, if we take a look at the menu, we'll see we have 802.1q VLAN. So if we take a look at this screen, we would see that we have what we call VID, which is usually VLAN ID. We have the VLAN name. We have untagged VLAN ports. We have tagged VLAN ports. We have VLAN rename, and we have delete VLAN ID, right? So this is where we can create a VLAN, right? We can see that we have one VLAN created already. Most switches you would find across multiple vendors will have this default VLAN 1, right? Set as the default. And the traffic that goes to VLAN 1 is untagged traffic, meaning that on the traffic header is not tagged as to what VLAN it is going. The traffic just goes to the default VLAN, right? So if we want to create a VLAN, we can go here and do add VLAN ID. We enter the VLAN ID here. Let's say, for instance, VLAN 2, and then let's say, for instance, our customer support team would be in this VLAN. Now we can decide to add interfaces to this VLAN or just create it like that, right? So if I create it, we would see that we have CS and we have the VLAN ID here. We can rename it and apply, and we can also delete it, right, on this side, and we can also delete it, right? So now if we want to add interfaces to this VLAN, want to add interfaces that would belong to this VLAN, we can click on that VLAN and then would go to and select the tagged interfaces that we want to add to this VLAN, right? So we'll select interface 1, 2, 3, and let's just select the ones from the end, right? And apply. By the time we apply it and come back here, we'll see that we have interfaces 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24 as tagged VLAN ports that have been added to this VLAN. Now that's how to create a VLAN and add ports to the VLAN, right? Now these ports belong to VLAN 2, which is CS. And if we have a broadcast traffic that is, sent out on VLAN 2, it's not going to go to VLAN 1. It's not going to go to any other created VLAN. It's only going to, be contained in VLAN 2. Let's add another VLAN. So I go here and add one more. Let's say we have our admin. That is 3. And then let's add 14, 13, 12, 11, and 10, and we apply. And then we're going to see it refreshes, and we have the third VLAN having these ports added to it. So that's basically how to create VLANs on a switch. On a Cisco device, you just go into your configuration mode and type in the VLAN ID. So for instance, if you were to create the second one we have here, you go to configuration mode and type in VLAN 2 and then press enter. Then you go in again and type name CS. That would give the VLAN a name. Then if you wanted to assign an interface to it, obviously you go to interface, switch port mode, access, switch port access, VLAN, whatever you want that switch port to be in, right? Now let's look at management VLAN. So here, management, we can enable a VLAN as a management VLAN, right? Which means that we want to use that VLAN as the VLAN to manage our devices that are on our network, and we can enable it and choose any of these VLANs as our management VLAN. But if you were to have a management VLAN, you have to separate the traffic. So create a VLAN specifically for management VLAN and ensure that it's only management traffic that is traversing within that VLAN, right? So that's how to do that one. Now, for ports, the second thing that we're supposed to talk about is, we've talked about VLAN, the VLAN interfaces and management. Now, the next thing that we should look at is spanning tree, right? So, if we go to, we have spanning tree here, 802.1d spanning tree. If we click on spanning tree, we can see the spanning tree settings are already here, right? And we have the 802.1d spanning tree configuration. We have the parameters set up for us. All we just need to do is click and select what we want. So this switch can obviously work with any other switch that has this type of spanning tree enabled, as long as the configurations match. So if we enable spanning tree, then we need to configure this. So when configuring spanning tree, your configuration is what determines what switch becomes the root bridge, right? Especially your bridge priority. So if we give it the priority that is the lowest, it's obviously going to become the root bridge. So we can do that and set it up as the root bridge. We can do the bridge max age, right? 6 to 40 seconds. We can set the max age here. We can set the hello times, right? 1 to 10 seconds and the forward delay time. So these are the times that it will take to communicate between other devices, each hello time. The forward delay time, which will determine how fast it, moves from one state to the other, and helps you ensure that the network converges faster. Now, we can see other parameters that are here, like the path cost, the priority, and all this information that are here. So once this is set up, you'll see that all this information populates the root bridge. It will tell you which one is the root bridge, the root port and the root path cost and all of that. So the purpose of spanning tree basically is on your layer 2 network, when you have switches that are redundantly connected to each other, right? The purpose of spanning tree is to ensure that that connection helps you for your network to be efficient, helps your network to be efficient and also loop free at the same time. So obviously the purpose of redundant connection is sometimes for, higher speed, faster transmission of traffic and all of that. But when you have redundant connections, it can also cause loops and radiation of loops within your network. So spanning tree helps you to ensure that that loop is eliminated within the network. So that is the purpose of spanning tree, and ensuring the parameters, the attributes, and each and every entity in spanning tree is what will help you know what you're configuring and how to configure it efficiently, irrespective of the vendor or device. Okay, the next thing we are taking a look at is the port modes. There's access port, there's the trunk port, right? So we can look at that here. You see where we have trunk in the configuration section, right? Here is where you can configure a port to be a trunk or an access port, right? So we would assume that all ports on this switch are in access mode, right? All of the ports are access ports, right? So to configure a trunk port, we just have to give it a name. It already has a trunk ID, right? 6 by default, which I don't think you can create more on this device, right? You can just give it, let's say trunk 1, and then we would decide what interface it is that we want to add to this trunk. So we can add multiple interfaces, 4, 5, 6, right? And apply. Now that we've applied it, so these 3 interfaces, 4, 5, and 6, are trunk ports. If we configure this trunk on another switch and also make it, let's say 6, 7, and 8, or 17, 18, 19, and we connect them to this one, that means that these 2 switches, their ports are functioning in port modes, in trunk modes, right? And this ports would usually help the switch to transmit data faster, load balance data on the multiple ports, and a lot of things you can achieve here using trunk modes, right? So that's basically it about this particular topic. So thank you so much for always watching, sharing, liking, commenting. Please do send me a DM if you want us to have a chat, and ensure you like, post, reshare, and see you on the next one.